Congratulations if you advanced to round 2 of the fantasy playoffs. I am only advancing in one home league. It was a brutal cut down week for me, but I am advancing in some best ball leagues, including a 200 plus point score in Best Ball Mania, which was good for a top 150 ranking on the entire week. No big deal on that one. But we're going through week 16's top 12 defenses, and there's going to be a lot of changes from the last time I did these rankings. Getting into tier 1, I think it feels very right to have the Texans in here by themselves. There is no hole that you can poke in this right here. The Texans defense is fantastic. Top to bottom, it's a tremendous squad. For fantasy football, they make all the plays. 38 sacks in 14 games, 16 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns. Then you line them up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are just basically a practice squad at this point. Sorry to Raiders fans, but you have to know this is just a terrible team right now. The Raiders are awful. They will not score many points, and if it is not Geno Smith and it's Kenny Pickett, that's even worse. The Texans, there's no holes to poke in this one. Dropping down to our next tier, I understand that this is a small tier too, but once we get into the middling tiers, you're going to understand why. I'm going to have more confidence in the Eagles and the Rams than I will in the other defense. The Eagles are playing Washington. Now, we got an update before we started filming that Washington is shutting Jaden Daniels down for the entirety of the rest of the season. So you will not see Jaden Daniels again. Actually, not that it was that much different. Like, I think Jaden Daniels is obviously a much better player on any given Sunday than Marcus Mariota is, but I just think that when you look at the year, it hasn't been good for Jaden either. This is an old team. They're beat up. Their season is over. They understand that, and the Eagles looked like themselves against the Raiders. Now, obviously, it was the Raiders, but they are playing another team that's kind of like the Raiders a little bit. The Washington Commanders do not have much fight left in them, I don't believe, and the Eagles defense, I do think, can make the plays necessary and just hold them to less points than a lot of other offenses would if they were playing the Eagles. Like, if it was the Chargers matchup again, I wouldn't really love that defensive play, but since it's the Commanders, since they're done as a team, I love the Eagles at number 2 and the Rams at number 3. I said this last week and I'll stand by it. The Rams defense against Seattle, that's a matchup you want, and I get it, it's in Seattle. That's one of the tougher places to play in the entire league right there, but the bottom line remains this. There's been one team with Sam Darnold's number over the last 2 years, and that is the Los Angeles Rams, who forced, 4 or 5 turnovers off of Darnold the first time. They know his number, and they've got it, and they're going to call him, because that is what the Rams defense will do. The one weakness the Rams defense has is in the secondary, and Jackson Smith and Jigba cannot function if Darnold doesn't function that day. So I think the Rams are going to take it to the Seattle Seahawks offense and put up a really good fantasy performance on defense. But I'm telling you this, I think the Rams are probably a defense that's on waivers right now. If you want to advance to your championship round, you need to utilize our automatic waiver tool, which is on the site fsroundup.com. You will be able to claim the Rams defense after priority waivers run through, as the rest of your league tries to get up at 3 in the morning to beat you to the wire, but they don't know that you're using fsroundup.com. You'll also get access to my top 300 rankings on the week. You'll also get access to the comparison feature and the league sync-up feature on the site as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, here's where things get jumbled right here. The Broncos defense, for me, is at number 4 versus Jacksonville. And the reason why I like them at number 4 is because if you look at the rest of the defenses in here, you can poke holes in these other defenses or their matchups. With the Jags, obviously, that's not a great matchup. Trevor Lawrence just put up a massive performance in fantasy football that I hope you were able to capitalize on. My point on it is this. The Broncos defense has been excellent this year. Their pass rush is insane. 58 sacks in 14 games. Yes, they don't get after your quarterback as far as a turnover perspective. They've only got 9 interceptions on the year. That's not tremendous, and they only have 6 forced fumbles, which also is not that great either. But Trevor Lawrence historically has been a quarterback, like most are in the NFL. If you put pressure on him, he will make mistakes. And on top of that, I believe Denver is one of the toughest places to play in the entire NFL. Hence the Broncos over the Saints at number 5, who have a much better matchup. But I can't trust the Saints on a weekly basis. Now, the Saints defense, I've been saying for many weeks now, actually is better than you think. I do think the Saints defense can make plays for fantasy. They've got 29 sacks in 14 games, 8 interceptions. They've got 9 forced fumbles and 2 defensive touchdowns. but you don't know what you're getting from the Saints week to week. Now, I will say this. The one thing with this one is the Saints look a little bit better than most of the bottom end of the NFL, right? Tyler Sugar's playing good football right now. Their defense has something to play for because they've got some life left. Kind of reminds me of the Panthers at the end of last year. But I also think with the Jets, you know that they're finished, and you know they're not going to put many points on the board. The only thing that could save this one is if Tyrod Taylor returns. But I've still got the Broncos over the Saints because I trust that defense more than I trust the Saints. The Bills' defense at number 6 at Cleveland this week. I trust this matchup to a certain perspective. I do think Cleveland is falling apart. And I actually don't think it's all on Shedeur Sanders, but he makes a lot of turnovers. I mean, this guy is good for at least one ugly interception on a per-game basis. And the amount of chances that he takes and the lack of weapons that he has at this point kind of just leads me to believe he will throw more turnovers than just one. So I do think the Bills are in good position to get turnovers off of him. I also think the Bills' other strength of their defense outside of creating turnovers is when they get on a run with pass rushing. And the Browns' offensive line has already been bad all this year, and they're actually getting worse. So I don't think that this matchup is going to be bad, but we never know. The Bills' defense is not exactly one I trust. They're not exactly a defense that's competent every single week. It's very drive to drive with them. So what I'm kind of basically relying on here is for Shedeur Sanders to get sacked a bunch and to throw some interceptions, which is why I feel comfortable enough to put them at 6. The Seahawks defense is at 7. Listen, I had them ranked a lot higher the first time we did these rankings on last Friday. But the bottom line is the Rams are a really good offense, and they really play clean football. Like, I think one of the biggest turning points for me personally over the weekend was watching the Seahawks play the Colts. And if you watch that game, Phillip Rivers was not great down the field. Like, he couldn't push the ball down the field for much of anything. But he's smart because he's been in the league for so long, and he stayed away from taking sacks and from taking big hits and from taking chances with his throws. Matt Stafford is all the above. He's smart, but he has a better arm than Phillip Rivers, so he can push it down the field more, and he doesn't turn the ball over or take sacks that much. So the Seahawks defense, I think they're going to be a little hard-pressed for fantasy points this week, while also admitting I don't think the Seahawks defense will allow more than 20 points from the Rams. So I do think from a scoring perspective, and just because of how talented the defense is, they've got to stay inside the top 10 for me personally. The Lions defense is at 8 to round out this big tier, and they're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. I'm kind of curious to see what everybody thinks of me on this one, because I think this is kind of a mental matchup type of situation here. Like, whatever you think about the matchup is exactly how you think the defenses will perform. The Lions, to me, are going to crush the Steelers. Like, without watching the Steelers yet, I'm filming this on Monday, haven't watched the Steelers on Monday night yet, without even knowing, I think that the Lions will beat the Steelers because the Steelers without TJ Watt, one of the worst records in the NFL. Number 2 is in these positions where the Steelers take on really high-flying offenses, they can't keep up. So what happens is they start making mistakes because they're trying to keep up. Aaron Rodgers gets sacked because he's trying to extend plays. He's throwing interceptions. That's what we've seen this year, particularly against the Bills several weeks ago. This is what it reminds me of. And the Lions defense, they're weak right now. Like, they're getting dropped like flies from an injury perspective, just like it was last year. But the Lions can get after your quarterback. That's one thing they can do, and they can get turnovers. So that, to me, is why I think the Lions are a top 10 defense this week. Dropping down to that last tier, I've got the Chiefs defense at number 9, and they're going to Tennessee to take on the Titans. So obviously, most of us know. If you don't know already, you're probably living under a rock because it's very national news. Patrick Mahomes torn ACL. My concern with this one is that it affects the rest of the team, because how could it not? This is your stalwart player. This is your franchise, and he just ripped his knee up, and you just got eliminated from the playoffs. So I do kind of wonder, is there a little pullback there from a player's perspective on how well they're going to try in this game? Ultimately, I still trust Andy Reid. I still trust Steve Spagnuolo more than I trust the 49ers last week, who I did not include in the top 12, got lambasted over it and was right about because they just have more talent than the 49ers, and the Chiefs don't even have that much talent. But I do think they will end up doing well enough because while the Titans have put up more points, and I actually do think they look better as a team, I also think that Cam Ward is still not good enough and not clean enough to not take sacks and not turn the ball over at least once in the game. The Bears defense is at number 10. This one flipped. I used to have the Packers in the top 12 when I first ranked these defenses this past Friday. I flipped. I'm on the Bears side now. And there's one major reason for it, and it's Christian Watson. With him in this offense, this team looks explosive. They can get down the field. Without him, they looked really bad. And I think it's been traceable because if you look back to before when they had Christian Watson, they were struggling down the field. I do think Christian Watson leaves a massive hole in this offense, and the Bears defense can get turnovers. They get like 1 or 2 every single week. That secondary is really ball hawking. It's not that they have the greatest front seven, but they can get after your quarterback, and they just force turnovers. That's the bottom line. So I think without Christian Watson, Jordan Love will push the ball down the field, and it will bite him in the butt. That's why I think the Bears are top 10 this week. The Jaguars defense at 11. I can think the same thing about the Jags defense as I do about the Broncos defense. I just think the Jags are in a tougher spot. They're going to Denver. Denver looked great offensively. Bo Nix, I still don't trust him though. I think Bo Nix can throw interceptions or just not perform that well in general. And the Jags defense, much like the Bears, ball hawking. 18 interceptions in 14 games, 8 forced fumbles, 1 defensive touchdown, 1 safety, 1 special teams touchdown, and the 28 sacks number, obviously not great. But that's my point, is I do think it's got a Bears quality to this defense, but it's been more consistent in generating turnovers. The Jaguars defense basically does once or twice a week as well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking it will happen, because I don't trust the Denver offense yet, much like many people probably do after playing the Packers. And I do think it was a great game. I think the Denver Broncos are a really good team, but I do think the Jags also are a very good team as well, with a defense that can get after a quarterback and go ball hawking. The Vikings defense is number 12 to round us out right here. They're going to New York to take on the Giants. Now, Jackson Dart can put up points. He can put up yards. That's not the problem here. I believe, though, it's going to have to be in garbage time, because the Vikings defense has been very good. And I've been saying this for weeks. That defense is not the problem. That problem is the offense over there. The Vikings defense with Brian Flores at coordinator is excellent. So I do think that when you look at what they just did against the Cowboys, obviously they gave up 20 plus points, but that's a way more potent offense. With Jackson Dart, who I do think is really good, they still struggle because they just don't have enough talent on that offense. So I do think that they just won't put up as many points as the Cowboys did, and they'll probably throw an interception or 2 or just fumble because the Vikings defense is fast and aggressive at the point of attack. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below, and make sure to stay tuned for this week's Top 12 Kickers.